Foundation rant over. Alright, so today it's time for another foundation roundup video. So this is where I go through a bunch of foundations I've been testing for the last few months and tell you my final thoughts after I have tried these things. Some of them are a little bit newer, but the majority I've been testing for at least a couple months now. They're all new releases, so foundations that I think you might be interested in. I'm guessing that's why you're here. I'm probably popping this right in the middle of the intro because I totally forgot to mention this, but by the way, if you missed it, this week the announcement video for my brush set that I made with Sigma Beauty is live. I custom designed 3 brushes with them for the face, so I'm gonna leave it linked down below. I'm pre-filming this right now, so the launch hasn't happened in my time, but thank you so much if you're someone who has purchased. I hope that you guys love these brushes as much as I do. So much blood, sweat, and tears went into making these. So if you're excited for this video and you enjoy while you're watching, you can give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. It does actually help YouTubers out. We don't just say that for funsies. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some foundation. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but literally this whole apartment, like every 10 minutes, shakes. I don't get it. I don't know if the train is underneath or what, but it's interesting. All right, so let's start out with a new release from YSL. This is their new Bare Look Skin Tint. And not any, well, new and new. This retails for $38, has 1 fluid ounce of product, and comes in 20 shades. And I have the shade 2. The shade is a pretty good shade match for me, but it's a little bit too light and a little bit too pink, but it totally works once I add my bronzer and everything. As you'll see from a lot of the products I'm talking about right now, skin tints are just like the hot thing right now, okay? It's what every brand is coming out with because the trend right now is kind of more natural, lighter coverage looking makeup. So pretty much every brand is coming out with some kind of skin tint, tinted moisturizer. It's just the thing right now, even if it's actually not that, like even if it's more of a medium coverage foundation, they're just marketing it as a skin tint. If it's not a true skin tint, like light coverage, natural looking, that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine with foundation launches right now, because basically it's just a way to launch a medium coverage foundation but have less shades, because they're getting away with calling it more of like a sheer buildable, adjustable, adaptable formula, which a lot of times it's just not. Foundation rant over. So YSL launched this. It's supposed to be a skin tint. They say it's a lightweight skin tint with hyaluronic acid and buildable light to medium coverage for a fresh, dewy complexion. So I would say this is solid medium coverage. On me, it looks more like a satin matte finish, which I really like that because then you can kind of adjust it. You can put on a more mattifying primer underneath if you want your face more matte, or you can do a setting spray over top and make your skin more dewy. So having a nice flattering like satin matte finish can be really nice because it just gives you room to work with the product. Like with most YSL products, this is pretty heavily scented. It smells like a floral perfume basically. Okay, sorry, was I just out of focus? It keeps wanting to focus on the plant, but I told it to focus on my face. I find this to be medium coverage. Like with most products, you can adjust it, you can sheer it out by just using less product typically. But I think you can definitely get medium coverage out of this. I actually think this is more of a satin matte finish. Again, finishes look totally different, even just depending on what moisturizer you put underneath. And one thing I do like is that it is easy to blend stuff over top of this because it doesn't have a super tacky finish. So it's easy to blend powder over top. If you just want to go in straight with the powder blush and not set in between, you can do that because it doesn't have a super tacky finish. Oops, just noticed the sun is coming in right there. But this one for me is not one that I want to consistently reach for because it just emphasizes the texture on my forehead a little bit too much. And if I'm going for more of a natural finish, light medium coverage, I want it to just look like skin. I don't want it to look like you can see where there's like makeup kind of caking up, because then what's the point? If I'm going for lighter coverage, I want it to look like my skin. So for me, I don't love this one. I don't hate this one. Like I can put it on and I'm like, okay, it's fine, but it's not something that I would particularly recommend. Next, let's talk about a new foundation from LA Girl. This is their tinted foundation buildable natural finish. This retails for $8.99, has 1 ounce of product, and comes in 16 shades. I have the shade Bisque. I like that this is fragrance free. It says sheer to medium coverage, and it says that it hydrates the skin. I really don't like this one. For me, I don't find this to be buildable at all. The most you can get out of this with 2 layers is low medium coverage. Like I would say barely medium coverage. I think you're better off just using 1 layer and calling it light coverage. It's funny that one of their claims is that this hydrates the skin, because on me, it looks dry. Like this is definitely one of those foundations that just doesn't sit well on my skin, like on my chin. If something isn't sitting well on my chin, that's a really bad sign, because I usually have no issues with my chin, and this just like clings weird. It looks dry. This is one that like when I first put it on, I instantly knew it was a no. I kept testing it because I was like, maybe I just had a bad skin day. No, I just don't like this one. Doesn't sit well on my skin at all. Wouldn't recommend. Okay, next up, let's do the Beautyblender Bounce Skin Tint. Always on Radiant Skin Tint. Again with the skin tints. If I had $1 for every time you said skin tint in this video. So this retails for $29, has 1 ounce of product and 20 shades. I have the shade Light too. I think it's a little bit on the light pinky side again. I feel like I could probably go 1 shade up, but again, I can just warm it up with bronzer and it's totally fine. So they say this is a hydrating skin tint that has light, medium buildable coverage and a naturally radiant finish. So again, I think this one is a solid medium coverage. I really like the coverage out of this. It is a dropper, so it's more of a liquidy kind of formula. And surprisingly, I actually prefer this foundation with a sponge. There are very few foundations on me that I prefer just using a sponge with. Like a lot of times I'll go in with a brush and then smooth it over with a sponge, and that gives me the best coverage and finish. But it's extra surprising because normally foundations like this that are more liquidy, a sponge is not the way to go because it can kind of like soak up a lot. But for some reason with this formula, I find a sponge gives the best, like smoothest finish and just applies it really nicely. So I do like this foundation. It's lightweight. When it goes on, it does feel like a serum, but it has pretty good coverage, like medium coverage. And I would say you can build it to about high medium. Like you're definitely not gonna get full coverage out of this unless you already have, you know, perfect looking skin to start with. And a lot of foundations that are lighter can look like they have more coverage, but I think you can build it up to high medium coverage. I like the finish. I do think it's a natural radiant finish. It's not overboard, and I like that, again, I can kind of like adjust it if I'm using more glowy products underneath. And because this one has such a lightweight and like thin kind of formula, I actually like it with powder over top. So going in with like a light layer of the Huda Glowish powder just to add a little bit of coverage, and then setting spray. Like I find this with this powder with a setting spray is a really nice combo because all 3 still look like skin and it just like melts together nicely, and this formula isn't too heavy. The one downside for me with this one is that I feel like it looks good for about 6 hours. So if you need your makeup to like be an all day kind of one, you would probably definitely have to powder this. I like it. It is one that I like to reach for. That says a lot when I have a lot of foundations here, like which products I'm reaching for. I do like this one, but again, I'm not putting it on if I want it to be full coverage or I want my skin to look like totally flawless. This is more of just like a wearable everyday foundation where if I just need it to last like 5 hours, we're good. And I forgot to say, if you want like the most flawless finish with this one, I actually like spraying the setting spray on the sponge and then pressing it into my face. Like instead of spraying the setting spray right on, spray it on the sponge and then really press it in. And this foundation just like melts really well into your skin when you use other products with it. Since this one is marketed very similarly, let's go in with this one next. L'Oreal True Match Nude Serum Hyaluronic Tinted Serum product. So this retails between 15 and 20 bucks depending on where you get it. But this has 1 fluid ounce of product and 14 shades, and I have the shade 0.5 to 2, very light. It's the lightest shade, and I feel like this is a good shade match for me. Interestingly enough, this is actually another one that's more of a serum formula that I actually like better with a sponge, and I get better coverage with the sponge. Both of those, not my norm, but they do look better with a sponge. So this has 1% hyaluronic acid in it, which is nice because it's kind of like, you know, skincare and foundation in one. I would call this radiant finish, light to medium coverage. I saw in the comments of the Charlotte Tilbury video, someone was saying like this was a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury foundation. In my opinion, this has definitely lighter coverage than the Charlotte Tilbury foundation. And I think this one does have more of a radiant finish. I think the finishes are different on my skin at least. This one grew on me a little bit. I still don't love this one. Like it's not one that I find myself wanting to reach for a lot, but with this sponge, it looks nice for about 4 hours. It's not long lasting. It's just like a tinted serum kind of product. It looks nice if I'm like running errands and I want a little bit of something. I don't think it makes my skin look amazing. You know, a foundation that I would say makes my skin look amazing is the Shiseido Synchro Radiant. That one is full coverage, so I'm not really trying to compare those two, but just as far as the finish, like this isn't one where I'm like, whoa, my skin looks incredible kind of thing, but it does look good. I also like doing the same combo as the Beautyblender with this, where I use the powder and setting spray over top because again, it's like that lightweight kind of serum formula. This one compared to the Beautyblender, different finishes. This one's much more radiant and lighter coverage. Okay, Jaclyn Cosmetics. This is the Skin Perfecting Blurring Tint. I have the shade Fair Light. So this is $34, comes in 12 shades and 1 ounce of product. I also bought the concealer because at the time on their website, it was like, I think you got like $10 off if you got both or something. So I'll tell you my thoughts on the concealer too. The claims for this is that it's a blurring primer and tinted moisturizer. It says the sheer coverage wonder delivers a natural finish that blurs texture and enhances the look of your skin for that just woke up glow. First of all, I thought it was very interesting that they launched this for the first face product. This actually reminds me a lot of the LA Girl product. I did not like this at all. It did the same thing where it like clings weird on my chin for me, around my pores. It just does not look flattering on my skin. They say it's a blurring primer and tinted moisturizer in one. They say it blurs texture. This does zero blurring for me whatsoever. It actually like really enhances my texture. Besides that, it has an incredibly strong soapy kind of scent. Like very strong, stronger than the YSL, stronger than Dior foundations. The fragrance in this is intense to the point where it almost like burns my eyes a little bit putting this product on. I would say it's medium coverage with a brush, light coverage with a sponge, and the concealer, this is rough. It actually only has 2.2 stars on Ulta, and I get why. The formula, like something's off with this. It's extremely fast drying. It is full coverage, but it's such a dry formula that when you go to blend it out, you just have this like major line in texture where your concealer stops and your foundation starts. I think they need to just work on this formula a little bit more and reformulate it. Okay, switching from a bad one, let's talk about a good one. So this is the Revolution Conceal and Glow foundation. So this is actually the foundation I have on right now. I keep trying to avoid the sunlight right here. This is what I'm wearing right now. This is $13, comes in 20 shades. I have the shade F2. This one is a bit light and again pink, but obviously I can make it work once I add the rest of my products on. I just put on like a lot of bronzer with this one. I used the Makeup by Mario in the shade Light today. This has brightening vitamin C for radiant finish. They say buildable coverage and light reflecting pearl particles. I think this one is high, medium, low, full coverage, again, depending on how you apply it. If you use a sponge, I do get less coverage. If you use a brush, I get more, but then I do definitely like to press in the sponge after with this one. I feel like that's how I get the best coverage. But whenever I put this one on, I do love how my skin looks. Like it looks it almost has that like plumping, healthy, very radiant kind of effect. It's definitely a dewy foundation. And also what I love is even those very dewy products, like powder products, blend well over top of this. I feel like when I wear this foundation, my blush and bronzer hold up well throughout the day. A con for me with this one is that I do tend to get creasing. Not immediately, definitely like a few hours in, I'll get a little bit of creasing. It doesn't look incredible by the end of the night, but it actually reminds me a lot of the Catrice foundation. The coverage, the finish, the way it wears on me, like I still like it, but I don't get that all day wear out of it, which sometimes I don't need, you know, like if you're just going out to dinner and you want your skin to look full coverage and really nice, like this is when I would put on a foundation like this. But sometimes it's nice to just have a foundation that you like how it looks for the first few hours if you're just gonna be wearing it at night or something like that, especially if it's more of an affordable foundation like this one. But I do really like this. Whenever I'm wearing this foundation, especially in vlogs, I'll get asked about what I'm wearing, and I always think that's a interesting sign, like when you guys notice. You can build this, but because it's more of like I wouldn't say it's a thick cream, but it is more of like a cream finish. So because of that, if you have issues with creasing, I wouldn't say that's probably the best idea. I would rather just go in with one layer and like use some concealer on areas that I need to. Am I fully in the sun? I can't even, oh yes I am. Okay, no matter where I move to right now, I'm like partially in the sun, so apologies. I actually totally forgot I did a review on this like 2 years ago. It's the Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover Foundation. This comes in 29 shades. It's $28, but you actually only get 0.51 ounces of product, which is pretty pricey. So that means a full ounce is $56. I got the little samples. I was on her website getting something else and I saw the foundation and I picked up a couple more. So I have the shade N2.75. These are the sample sizes. I love that you can get samples to see what your shade might be, but this is 2.75 and then 1. This is definitely too dark, 2.75. 1 is way too light. So if you're very fair, it is fair. But I mix the two and I actually love the undertone of 2.75. So I really like mixing this with other foundations. Let me first tell you about it. They say it's a hybrid lightweight foundation, concealer and foundation in one, sheer or built to full. I actually really disagree with that. This is full coverage and I think it would be difficult to get sheer coverage out of this. Like you'd have to mix literally like a dab with like moisturizer or something. I think it's safe to say this is full coverage. And it's interesting, in the review, I washed it back from a couple years ago. It definitely looked like very dewy on my skin back then. And since I've been testing it now, and again, my skin is like going through stuff right now just with the drier weather, but on me now, it definitely looks like more of a satin matte, closer to matte finish. If it looks soft on the skin, I like that. I like a matte finish if it does look soft, if it doesn't emphasize stuff. And I've been liking this one because it does look just like soft matte, looks flattering on my pores. And whenever I'm wearing this, my skin looks nice. I love the coverage, and there's just like something about the finish of this. If you're doing like photos or you just need your skin to look like flawless full coverage, I've been really liking this. I also really like mixing it with other foundations because it just adds that more like matte finish with the full coverage. So it's a good mixing one for me. I'm gonna order the full size of this. I don't know which shade I'm gonna get. I think I would go like 1 or 2 shades down from N2.75, but try to get the same undertone, because the undertone of this is really flattering on my skin tone. It is a slightly yellow, but it's like neutral yellow. I do get a little bit of creasing with this one, but again, I'm not like typically using it as an all over. I'll either mix it or do like most of the coverage concentrated on my cheek area. You can get them on Camera Ready Cosmetics, I think. I actually think you can get this foundation on Sephora now. I'm gonna link everything down below, like always, every foundation. And last foundation is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Sheer Long Wear Makeup. I always am so curious to try Estee Lauder foundations in the double wear range because they're so different. Every foundation that's come out under the double wear line, like some of them I love, some of them I hate, and they look super like cakey on my skin. So it's just always very hit or miss for me. So it's fun to test because you never know what you're gonna get with this one. This is $43, 1 fluid ounce of product, and comes in 26 shades. I have the shade 1 and 2. So they say it's a sheer natural matte foundation with up to 12-hour wear, SPF, and skincare benefits. And they say it's a softly diffused matte finish. So with a brush, I would say this is light to medium coverage, but it covers my redness pretty well. So I would say it's closer to like medium coverage with a brush. I don't think this is buildable. This doesn't build at all. It's a very, very watery, lightweight formula. So you definitely want to shake this one. And like when you turn it upside down, like it's coming out. It's a super liquidy formula. I love how lightweight and airy this feels. Like this is one of those foundations that when you blend it out, it almost feels like you're not blending out anything on your face. I'd say it's a satin matte finish. On me, I have to definitely moisturize well underneath and use like kind of more glowy moisturizing products, because if I don't, this one can tend to like look not bad, but just like a little bit too textured in certain areas, like between my eyebrows where I usually get texture. But if I prep my skin right with this one and then use a setting spray, it looks okay. The texture for me is hit or miss. Like it kind of depends on the skin day I'm having. If I have like a lot of texture on my skin that day, this is not a foundation I would want to reach for. But if my skin's like having a pretty decent skin day, then when I put this one on, it can look nice. It's not a foundation that I'm obsessed with. It's not one that I think you need to go run out and buy. And this one does crease on me. So I would say if you have wrinkles, if you have fine lines, or if you just tend to crease, then you probably wouldn't like this one, because for being like as lightweight as it is and so like airy, it is a little bit shocking that it still does crease. With this one, I tried this a lot. Like I was wearing this a lot in New York, and for me, I never found a combo with this one that I was like, whoa, I love this. It was always like, okay, my skin looks fine. Like I don't hate it, I don't love it, but I'm never like fully wowed by this, and it's not something that I want to reach for. So I feel like that kind of says a lot. All right, wow, those were all the foundations. Everything will be listed down below in the description box. I am going to be testing the new NARS foundation. A lot of you guys asked about that one. If you want to know my thoughts on a bunch of other foundations, I'll leave some of the roundup videos listed down below, or some of my like top foundation kind of videos if you want to know my favorites. Everything is always in the description box. The makeup on the rest of my face today, like I said, I used the Makeup by Mario bronzer. I used the Huda Beauty Berry Juicy blush, Laura Mercier Rose Glow and Get It highlighter. For eyes, I have been really liking this palette. It's the ColourPop Smoke and Roses. I always forget when I put pinks on that I actually really like wearing pink eyeshadow. I went in with this palette for all of my eye makeup, put a little brown liner on. Lashes are Glam Light. I just cut the edges to make them kind of more like cat eye. And then my lips, I did Charlotte Tilbury Iconic Nude. I did a weird combo. The M Cosmetics lip cushion, I'll link down below, the like pink one. And then the Patrick Star Peachy Peter. I feel bad that I keep mentioning this because obviously you can't get it anymore, but this is such a good nude color for mixing. It's like such a good undertone. I love mixing that one. But that's everything. I really need to eat breakfast now. feel like I'm about to fall over. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. Thank you. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.